This episode of Resilience in Relationships is sponsored by the Set Me Free Project. Hello and welcome to Resilience and Relationships. I'm Stephanie Olson and I'm here with
Rebecca Saunders
and
Dylan Yeomans.
Yay! Okay, so Dylan, I will let you start this episode out.
So the other day, Stephanie and I actually had come across some information for bill number LB320.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
that means a lot to everybody, right?
Yes. Okay. So everybody knows what that bill is, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I can just move right past this. I don't need to explain any further then. You guys already know.
Yeah, we're
it's
good.
fantastic. So I feel like that's sometimes how our system works. It's like, oh yeah, you guys already know. It's LB320. It's fine.
Exactly.
But what this bill is, and I will read it quickly here so we don't take too much time on it.
Specific to Nebraska, correct?
This is a specific to Nebraska bill, and I figured this conversation could start here, but kind of balloon out since we are across multiple states here. But on this bill, it is a human trafficking bill. Lawmakers passed in February 20th of this year to help combat human trafficking at Nebraska hotels and motels. Sounds great, right?
Sounds great.
Okay, so let's dive into what this bill actually allows and doesn't allow. So this bill adds that hotels and other lodging establishments to the list of public spaces required to display posters that include the Nebraska Human Trafficking Hotline number and other information. Still sounds pretty good so far, right?
I have thoughts on that, but go ahead.
Bill also allows for optional training for employees on human trafficking issues specific to the lodging industry, which may be developed and provided through collaboration between the state attorney general, the State Department of Labor, and lodging establishments. We'll touch more on that one. The last bit of this, as an owner, operator, or employee of a hotel or similar public lodging establishment who implements the training and other policies would not be liable for any act or omission related to human trafficking committed by a third party at the establishment unless they knowingly assist such action or fail to act in a reasonable manner.
Okay, so read that one part again because it said act or omission, meaning that if we omit information, right?
Yep.
Which seems intentional to me.
Yep. That's exactly it. So I think we're going to break this down going from what we just heard, and I'll bounce us back up to the top.
Okay.
So it does say, as an owner, operator, or an employee of a hotel or similar public lodging establishment who implements the training and other policies would not be liable for any act or omission related to human trafficking committed by a third party at the establishment unless they knowingly assist such action or fail to act.
Okay, there's so much there.
There's so much there.
Okay, so this passed on a vote of 46-1. And I think that there's something very interesting about this because I wish that I would have known about this ahead of time so I could have been there to really hear more of the comment because it sounds great. This goes back to the importance of politicians being trained in human trafficking, period, but also human trafficking prevention, human trafficking intervention, and all of those things. Because, first of all, posters, yes, I think it's good to have the Nebraska Human Trafficking Hotline posted. My problem is that sometimes posters aren't really helpful if there's not information. I think it's important to have the ability to report something, but how do you report when you really have no idea what human trafficking looks like? Or I don't know, that might be a whole other
There's a lot
thing.
there.
But I think you're onto it, right? Because even I had said that too. It's like, okay, so what would the poster look like?
Right.
Is it just a phone number that says the Human Trafficking Prevention Hotline? And that's it? Or is this like you see a picture of somebody being forced, or you see like a weird just static photo image that they look like they grabbed from Microsoft Clips, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
what
Not
does
all
this
posters
poster
are
really
created
look like? Yeah, exactly. So I love that we kind of brought that to light too. Like what does that truly look like? It's a good idea or thought process, but you know, the picture's worth 1,000 words is a saying for a reason too.
Right.
Now, I'm a little tripped up here by that last bit though, that basically says if you implement the training and other policies for anti-human trafficking, it makes you not liable. But not only not liable for something that happens to the establishment or at the establishment, but you're not liable if you fail, quote unquote, to act in a reasonable manner. What does that mean? That is so broad. What is
What is
reasonable by that definition?
So here is the poster. And yeah, okay. So
So can you describe it for maybe someone who's just listening to audio
yes,
we're looking at?
great, great, great idea. So it is a face or two faces with a line in between with a bunch of faces on the faces. That's really hard to describe. I would not be
Imagine the
good
old
at.
yearbook photos just like transparent over your face.
Yeah, that's actually a
Yeah.
great way to describe it. And then it says end human trafficking in Nebraska. See it, report it. To report, and it gives the number. And for help, it gives the National Human Trafficking Hotline number and a QR code. So that's the poster. My problem with this is it gives no information on what human trafficking is or looks like. The average Joe or Jolene would look at human trafficking and think, again, like, this is going to be someone, if I see somebody who is like being monitored by somebody constantly and walking around and maybe I don't know, I just don't know if the average person is going to look at this and say, oh my gosh, that's human trafficking. I'm going to report. I
It's
don't
not
know.
intuitive because there's not been enough education broadly.
Right, right.
No.
And that is my problem with posters.
Yeah. To me, this looks like the milk carton thing. Like, while it's a
Mm.
good idea in theory and you have the right idea and intention, it doesn't execute the way it should or needs to express what it needs to express. And I think that's potentially why you have that issue with posters as well, is it will never portray the full explanation or the
Right.
full thing to look for, things like that. So
Because there isn't an explanation.
exactly.
And I think that's one of the things I struggle with some things that go on. Like back in the day with the College World Series, people used to just pass out flyers. Like if you see it, say something. Well, without education, there is no, if you see what, it's just not trauma informed. And I struggle with those kind of things when you don't have education behind it. So, okay, so go back to your last statement though, Dylan.
Yeah, I thought this last part of the bill that just basically says if you implement the training or policies about human trafficking prevention or what to look for, those things,
Yeah.
that you are now not liable for any act or omission related to human trafficking committed by a third party at the establishment. Meaning if the hotel itself isn't doing it, they don't get in any trouble unless they knowingly assist such an action or fail to act in a reasonable manner. Well, that's where I get confused on this one now. So, okay, how do I fail to act in a reasonable manner, or how are you going to say that I'm assisting it? It's left wide open like this to where you got to directly prove like this person as part of the hotel was doing this.
How do you prove
And
that?
yeah, exactly. How are you going to prove that part
Yeah.
of things without like going through tapes and tapes and tapes of video surveillance footage? That's a job in itself. So it just seems like it is so, I don't want to say this super negatively, but open to wiggle out of.
Yeah.
Like it feels like it's very much, oh, I can get out of this if something happens to my hotel.
If you're complicit, let's say I'm an owner of a hotel and somebody slides me money to turn the other way, I think it would be extremely hard to prove that I was complicit. And so then you get busted, it gets busted, and I'm out. The laws that I have seen that are relatively effective with corporations is more punitive, where you hold the hotel liable for trafficking on your premises if it gets busted. And that gives the hotel much more incentive to stop human trafficking. I don't know. The other thing that they've not said on this the little one sheet of the bill is that the bill actually says that you have to train your staff within, right, 6 months
Yeah.
of
Right.
their employment. 6 months?
Turnover is so high in that industry.
Exactly. And the only thing that I can think of that why it was phrased that specific timeline was because of the fast turnover. And also, well, that only makes it so I have to do it twice a year.
Yes.
I can hold a big company one because I just hired in all these people around the same time.
And it should be done at every onboarding and repeated on a regular basis.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think too, like, just like not all posters are the same, not all training is the same.
Thank you.
Training, yeah. This can be, okay, here's a little video that no one's paying attention to that's running in the background. That could count as training, but that's not really effective.
Well, in fact, I won't name any names here, but we know big hotel chains that have training and good on you, right? For having training. That's a positive
Something
thing.
better than nothing for sure.
Right.
They made
Right.
the effort.
They've made the effort. But we have had those hotels reach out to us and say, our training's terrible. That is required by corporate. And we really want to be trained. And that indicates to me that the training from corporate, which is, we know, just a video, is not effective training. And there's reasons behind that. That's why training has to be done from a pedagogy standpoint. It has to be done for the learners. And the information needs to change based on the learners. That's so important.
100%. I have always kind of felt that way, even about schools in general. It's too much of a one-size-fits-all, shoehorn yourself into this mold thing. It's like, it doesn't really work that way.
Right.
Life doesn't work that way. So I love that you brought that up because that, I think, can kind of help us tackle this middle part of the bill where it's optional training for employees on human trafficking issue.
I missed that.
This is the flow of it. The bill also allows for optional training for employees on human trafficking issues specific to the lodging industry. Not just a human trafficking learning segment, specific to the lodging industry, which may be developed and provided through collaboration between the State Attorney General, the Department of Labor, and lodging establishments. So it's saying that you have to basically use whatever they provide you from the State Attorney General, the Department of Labor, and lodging establishments. That's it. Whatever you guys, those three organizations can come up with, that's what you have to use, is how that middle part reads. So that's kind of like if their training is not up to par and they try to get outside help, these guys could be punished for trying to be better.
Right. Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but so the training is optional, but the caveat, so if you do the optional training, then you have no liability. So I guess I'm just...
It doesn't make sense.
There, right? Like, what is the actual motivation for taking the training then?
And what does the training truly look like? I have heard that this training is a video. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, but if the training is a video, where is the accountability to hotels and motels on achieving and accomplishing the training? So, for example, and I'm going to talk about our online course really quick. This isn't a commercial about our online courses.
Not a shameless plug.
But I think it's important because our training is very specific. So we do training. All we do is training and curriculum. We don't do anything else, which means that what we do with excellence and we do it really well. And so because we come from that pedagogy standpoint, our training isn't one size fits all. It is industry specific, age appropriate, developmentally appropriate, all those things, which is why we have 30 plus pieces of training So with our online training, it's gamified. And
Mhm.
so it is engaging. You actually have to, in order to get through the training, you actually have to manipulate things during the training to get to the next level. And then there's a quiz that you take
That you have to pass.
and that you have to pass, and then you get a certificate. But our recommendation is that you're taking that during onboarding, but then you're also doing it regularly and often. Otherwise, no one remembers. Where is that accountability of popping a video in front of people and saying, okay, learn about human trafficking? Because I can watch it. I mean, I do all the time. I'm constantly like working, and I'll have something on YouTube next to me, and I'm half paying attention, half not. That's not learning.
No.
Yeah. But you know
And-
what? It's that nice little box on my clipboard there. I get to check it off.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And
That's
the
all it
thing
is.
is, maybe the video, maybe let's give it the benefit of the doubt, right? Like, let's say this
Best video ever.
all the best information. You still can't guarantee people are paying attention to it, but also your information's going to be outdated very soon,
Yeah, because
100%.
technology doesn't advance every 6 months to a year either.
right?
Yeah, okay. Well, look at the hotel industry. I
That
mean,
too.
how much the hotel industry is changing. And so if you've got a video that you have to redo every time the industry changes, you're just wasting money. Whereas our online course, again, not a plug, but I'm very proud of our stuff. Our online course, we can actually change all the time. I mean, we can update it consistently.
And we do.
And it's not, and
we
we
do.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of those things that I hope, and this is where like you got to throw a little faith into the air. It's like I hope that they receive feedback that instructs them to say, you know what, maybe that isn't the smartest or best idea here, and they change that hopefully sooner rather than later.
Do you mean like the feedback they received during the legislation and the bill hearings, like that kind of feedback? I'm sorry.
You know, it's exactly that kind of feedback, but this time they got to turn their hearing aid up. But I think what's going to be the reality is you're right, and it's going to be, not to mention any names, but big box retail stores are notorious for the 10 to 15-year-old training video of how to in your store, and that's what's going to end up happening 5 to 10 years down the road. It's still going to be the same video of how to prevent human trafficking in your world. And it's not going to hold up anymore because it has no relevance anymore.
Right.
And let's be real. I mean, as soon as you hear that voice, you see the footage, like it all looks the same, and your brain is immediately like, yeah, I'm not paying attention to this.
Yeah, because usually there's like a little jaunty little tune that starts like, let's check in with Joey. Joey's over here playing at the school grounds. Hey there, Joey. Hi. And like you can see it all in your head. As cheesy as I'm sounding it, you can see it because we've all seen those videos.
Yeah.
And that is the worry that I have about it, is that this now becomes a spoof, where this is one topic that should not, and is extraordinarily tough to do it, if you can even do it, to spoof on, because it's such a prevalent issue that there really is no end in sight at the moment. We've got to do better. So it comes down to, I think, our ears open. I think you kind of said it best. Are they listening to the people on the ground?
I have another question too, because it says, and other policies. Do we have any clue what those other policies are?
Nope. I think that's hotel policies. So it'd be like, well, it's mixed in with our anti-counterfeit and money laundering policy. There's an anti-human trafficking disclosure in the bottom saying you won't do that. That'd be my guess as the policy.
More than likely. I feel like it's probably that way too.
But again,
That's
where's the
fascinating.
accountability on that? Because, okay, it's this tiny word print this big at the very bottom of a 38-page employment application fill out. Okay, cool. I really read through that. We all know that a lot of people just skim right past that. Hate to burst corporate's bubble if they really thought people were reading those.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where I think that's the disconnect, is because there's so much of that, the employees now lose any sort of semblance of what they're really reading and signing and doing and training, and like turning on a video. Maybe it's hey, we're going to watch this 10-minute video, and after that video, we're going to do this thing afterwards. And that's the program.
Right.
All right, we did that every 6 months. Maybe the leadership team will remember that by year 2.
By
Maybe.
year 2, right?
Yeah, maybe. But it's
If
going to be
they're
the
still
same
around.
information. Yeah, if they're still around, plus it's the same info. So it's already outdated and they don't know any better. So now it becomes the telephone game.
The other thing that I think is really important too is there needs to be an opportunity to ask questions. And so this episode of Resilience in Relationships is sponsored by the Set Me Free Project. At the Set Me Free Project, we believe that prevention is powerful. And through our Ready to Stand curriculum, we equip youth, parents, educators, and industry professionals of all kinds with the tools to recognize human trafficking, navigate digital spaces safely, and build healthy relationships before exploitation can occur. Our mission at the Set Me Free Project is to stop human trafficking before it starts by providing prevention education to all ages. I think about with our online course, there is the opportunity to get things wrong, and then it'll talk about why this is not the right information. But then we do give an opportunity to reach out to us if there are any very specific questions or things like that. And I understand that people are kind of moving away from a lot of in-person training. Obviously, I think in-person training is the best way to do it, but it's not feasible to train every single person in the world in person. And so this is a great substitute, but it's got to be done correctly. Again, videos just don't cut it with training options. They just don't.
True.
No, and that's the thing is like you were kind of saying, unless it's a video that is almost like an ongoing series.
Yeah.
Or it's something that's streamed like every month or
choose
done
your own adventure.
Right. Like every week it comes out and you're able to poll in and vote and you see the outcome of what happens. Something like that would be awesome. And the government should listen to me and do something like that. I'd love to be your narrator.
We could help, right? We could help. We could help create it. But it wouldn't be a video. It wouldn't just be a video. But yes, go ahead.
Well, yeah, doing something like that to where it was not a set in stone, here's your thing, and it moves on, and now we're done with the issue.
Yeah.
Because as we've already stated, it changes too frequently. Technology changes too frequently.
Yeah.
It feels weird to say this, but people's behaviors and mannerisms change too frequently.
It's true.
So it's one of those that you can't have a set, here's the how-to video, because this isn't lifting a box, knowing how to bend your knees in the proper angle. That doesn't change. But human trafficking and how we perceive it is constantly changing, where if they did like a live series, I think they'd be better off. They would do wonderful in that regard, and hey, we would love to help you with such a thing.
Yes, yeah.
But again, is that feasible? Can they constantly make a week after week show or a month after month show updating everything every single time?
Or have their employees sit through it, right? I mean, let's be realistic. I agree. And I also think that here's another thing, though. How many videos are going to be in multiple languages? I don't know.
Yeah.
And on that, I'll piggyback one more question on that. How many languages?
Right. Because our Nebraska, if we're talking about Nebraska, our biggest public school in the state, which is Omaha Public Schools, has 190 languages just in that public school district. 190 languages. So if you've got a video, and that's one of the beauties of the work we do, is we can translate our stuff into multiple languages, and that's amazing. But again, I think this is where, I mean, we could do a whole thing on nonprofits, and we did, like collaboration, but I think there are so many people who want to build a kingdom or want to be the one-stop shop. What makes anyone an expert at everything? No one is. No one is.
Ignorance. That's what makes you an expert on everything.
It's a good point. And so there are a lot of people who want to do trainings with hotels. Here's the reality. We actually created our training with hotel experts, with hotel executives, with hotel staff. We didn't just make a training on our own. We utilized key experts in that.
Yeah, and we continue to listen to them as we update because there are things that change.
Exactly. And I just think that, so just like we would not go into the work of law enforcement. So in other words, we're not going to be putting a case together and going to find the human traffickers and investigating, and we're not going to do that. Why then do other people want to do trainings that don't come from this perspective of money? That was the money sign. I do think that's true.
I forget we have audio listeners.
Yeah.
Money symboling, old many man's symbols, if you would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the sad truth of it, right? Is money makes the wheels turn.
Yeah. Money and glory. I think there's a piece of that too, you know?
The hero complex is such an interesting one to dive through.
It's all over the place in nonprofits.
It really is.
Yep.
It really is.
Hero and savior complexes are...
Yeah. Because here's what we're never going to do. We're also never going to have a restoration house because that's not our strength, right? We're never going to start a counseling arm of the Set Me Free project because that's not our strength. We are all things curriculum, all things training, and we do that really well. But because that's our focus, we can expand just that piece. But that takes a tremendous amount of research, a tremendous amount of time, a tremendous amount of review with experts in the field. I mean,
and commitment. Especially if we've got to get that to a different language. Now we've got to commit to finding a person who's an expert in that language, and it's going to be translated correctly, proofread again. And there is so much pushing the boulder up the hill before it finally can roll over.
Right. And that's for us.
Yeah.
People who do this that have all of our staff focused on that. What if I don't have all my staff focused on that? I probably have 2 to 5 people focused on that, right? And then I can do I don't know. I just get so frustrated with that.
But it's justifiable. I mean, because I'm all for, a multitask or like somebody that accepts a dual role kind of thing. I'm all for that kind of thing, right? In the right context. Because once you start applying it to everything, it doesn't work. Because it's just too much. That's how people take on way too much. And they're like, oh, yeah, no, I'm good. And panicking in the background.
Yeah. And legislation is important. Things like this is important. I think it's great to get certain kinds of mandates in place for human trafficking training and things like that. But if you don't have the right legislation, if you don't have the correct wording, and you don't have the correct training, it literally doesn't do any good at all. In fact, it can make it worse. Yeah. We worked with an organization that they would go in person, they would train one time, didn't matter how many people they were training, and they would get a plaque, huge plaque that said, you have been trained. And I still see those plaques in some of the hotels. And I wonder how many people in this hotel right now had that training.
That'd be a really fun game of being like, hey, could you tell me about that plaque over there? It's so interesting. And just listen to him go, oh yeah, that was here way before I was.
No idea what that means, but it's pretty.
Like, we've given out certificates before, and our certificates don't look like that. It's this specific person was trained on this specific day on this specific topic.
And it expires.
Yes.
Those certificates actually have an expiration date. So, yeah, I just think it's got to be done the right way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that need to be ironed out. And I think for that to actually get uniform, it needs to come back down to the people level. It needs to have like the state legislators and senators and Congress people to, you know what? Maybe go partner up with a nonprofit and you go show a presentation with a nonprofit one day and you just kind of see the realism of what's being talked about, what people are seeing. And instead of making it this grandiose kind of deal, it's more, you know what? Hey, I was out last week in this school district and let me tell you what I heard. It becomes a real piece of, hey, you're doing it back again for the community. You're doing it back for this state. You have that senator and you're getting them in the right mindset. So again, that just, broad detail of how to extrapolate the importance of we need these Congress and senators to understand what they're saying and proposing and passing for laws. Not sure the right steps to go about that because, boy, I'd just be like, hey, here's my email and let's go.
Yeah. And here's what's interesting. We had a conversation about this bill with a couple of college students who were absolutely brilliant. And the thing that is concerning is that these college students who have been, one of them is doing a capstone on human trafficking, and we had the honor of being interviewed by her. But the knowledge base that this college student had that seems to supersede so many people who want to do this work but don't research and study. I don't know. I just struggle with that a little bit.
It was pretty enlightening what she had to share about that, because it just seemed, first of all, her background was super interesting as well.
Yeah.
When we got to talking off camera there, I won't disclose too much there, but super interesting person and very wow kind of background to her as well. And then to come over here and be passionate about a topic, doing your research about it, making it your capstone of your college career. And just her interaction that she had with one of our state officials left her puzzled, would probably be the right word to say there, because I don't think she quite grasped, she didn't get an answer. I think the lack of answer was just so, I don't want to say confusing, but maybe jarring. That I don't know if she caught that she didn't really ever get an answer by the sound of it.
She would ask questions and this person just didn't know the answer to respond, which says that there is not enough expertise in the field and the area. So, yeah, go ahead.
I do want to add, just for our due diligence here, we understand that being a state representative is an extremely important, stressful, high intensity job.
Yes.
And you can't be an expert in everything.
Nope.
But that's why you make committees. And that's why these committees have to have the right people in place. That's my 2 cents, so they don't go writing angrily to their elected officials.
And those committees can't just be politicians.
Correct. They need to be the actual people
on the ground doing the work.
Yeah, that's why I have said for years, since I grew up in a very rural community, if you're going to have an agriculture board in the state, senator levels, however you want to make that, why isn't it farmers and ranchers that run that agriculture board then?
100%. That's exactly it.
Exactly.
That's exactly it. This is an example. I had a conversation with a group of people who were frustrated because they wanted to make sure that across the state there was a voice for people of color in the anti-trafficking world, and that survivors needed to be sitting at the table, which I don't disagree with, by the way. However, my question to these people were, because at the time I was the only person of color running an anti-trafficking organization and a survivor, and yet never asked my opinion on what needed to go across the state, so it's like this lack of, we want to do this and we want to do it well and we want to sound good, but we're not going to actually ask the people who this affects.
I think that ties back to our hero savior complex of, I gotta make it the biggest thing in the world because I'm so passionate. And it's like, well, no, it's great to be passionate, but it's not you, it's what are you passionate about? That's the thing that you should care about.
And
Absolutely.
I think sometimes there's an element of oh, you don't know what you need, but I do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We talk cultural humility. How often do we train on cultural humility? And that just because you have experienced something doesn't mean everyone has experienced that same thing. Or just because your culture says this doesn't mean that's the same for every culture. And one of the things we always train people on, that whole trauma informed piece, is that it's not about saying, I know what you need, but what do you need? What would be helpful?
Yep.
Yeah.
But, somewhere along the way, we lost our listening cap and all we have is our discussion caps. And we don't remember the listening part.
So true.
It's somebody much wiser than I, and I can't tell you who, but said, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So there you go.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect place to put a pin in it because, again, things that have happened in Nebraska, hey, if you didn't like what we were talking about or you wanted to learn a little bit more about it, do some research, reach out to your elected officials. On the broader scope, talk to your elected officials anyway to make sure they're getting the right material in the right hands.
In all states, because every state has different mandates, every state has different, and this just happens to be Dylan in my state, not Rebecca's. But yeah, it's just, it was a good topic, came up, but yeah, I think you're right, Dylan. So thank you for bringing this up, and
Yeah, thank you.
No,
good conversation.
thanks for going through it, because I know politics don't worm their way too often onto the show here, but this one I felt was a good discussion to have.
Absolutely. And very much nonpartisan. So
Very,
love it.
because it's for the betterment of all.
That's right. Well, thank you for joining us, and get some R&R. We'll see you next time.